Alright, welcome back to the Token Launch Masterclass. Last time, we got our hands dirty in the idea maze, figuring out if your project even needs to exist. Now for the part everyone thinks they understand, but most get catastrophically wrong. The money. Today we're building the economic engine. This is episode 2, Tokenomics Masterclass, designing for value accrual, not just speculation. Look, I've seen dozens of white papers with beautiful charts and insane APYs that were fundamentally broken. They built rockets with no fuel. Our goal today is to move beyond that hype. We're going to deconstruct how to build a token that's the lifeblood of your ecosystem, not just another ticker for degens to gamble on. It's about creating something that has a reason to exist and a reason to grow in value, long after the launch party is over. So let's start with what I call the speculation trap. It's the most common mistake I see, where projects design their token models to be casinos. They're optimized for big price swings and constant trading, which looks exciting, but it's a trap. What you find is that this attracts a mercenary community. People who are only there for a quick profit. They create massive pump-and-dump cycles that wreck your reputation and distract you from building a real product. Think of it like this. You're trying to build a great city, but the only business in town is real estate speculation. Everyone is just flipping empty plots of land. There are no shops, no factories, no one actually living there. Your city might have a huge paper valuation, but it's a ghost town. It has no soul, no real economy, and it's destined to collapse. So how do we escape that speculative ghost town and build a thriving digital city? I find it helps to think of a sustainable token as resting on what I call the 3 pillars of value accrual. Picture a 3-legged stool. If one leg is weak or missing, the whole thing is unstable. The first pillar is utility, which is simply the right to perform an action within your ecosystem. The second is governance, the right to influence the future of the protocol. And the third is economic rights, which is the right to claim a piece of the value the system creates. Now, a common mistake is to just pick one and build around it. But the models I see succeed, the ones that create lasting value, don't just pick one. They intelligently weave all 3 together. They reinforce each other to create something truly robust. Okay, let's unpack that first pillar, utility. Most projects stop at gas fees, but that's the most basic, uninspired version. What I look for is a token that's woven into the very fabric of the protocol. Think beyond simple payments. You might find it works better to design your token as a work permit. To be a validator or service provider who earns fees, you must stake the token. It's not a toll, it's a license to operate. Another powerful model is the access key. Holding the token unlocks premium features or higher API limits, creating intrinsic demand from your most valuable users. And one of the most elegant designs is the usage credit that gets burned upon use. This creates a direct, deflationary link to platform adoption. As your product gets more popular, your token gets scarcer. That's real, sustainable utility. So let's talk about that second pillar, governance. Honestly, this is where many protocols stumble. The default is one token, one vote. But what I find is that this just creates a plutocracy, where the richest player wins, not the smartest. It's easily captured. What I like to see is a move beyond the simple ballot box. You might find that reputation-weighted voting is a powerful alternative. It gives a greater say to the long-term active contributors, your true believers, rather than just passive whales. It values commitment over just capital. Then there are even more advanced models, like futarchy, where participants don't just vote yes or no, They actually bet on the future success of a proposal if it passes. It's a fascinating way to surface what people truly believe will work. The goal isn't just voting. It's about incentivizing genuinely informed decision-making. All right, let's tackle our third and final pillar, economic rights. This is the big one. How does your token actually capture the value it helps create? The most common paths are fee sharing, where protocol revenue is directly distributed to token holders, and buyback and burn models, which use revenue to purchase tokens off the market, reducing supply. What I find is that both have their place, but they can be short-sighted. What I really like to see is a more sophisticated approach, something I call protocol-owned value. Instead of just passing revenue through, the Treasury actively manages its assets. It can earn yield, provide liquidity, and build a real balance sheet. This creates a foundational value for your token that isn't just tied to the daily fee volatility. It turns your token from a simple claim on fees into a share in a productive, growing enterprise. So we have these three pillars: utility, governance, and economic rights. But they don't work in isolation. What I look for is how they connect to create a self-reinforcing loop, what I call the tokenomics flywheel. Let's walk through it. Imagine your platform gains traction. More users mean more activity, which generates fees. This directly powers the economic rights pillar. Now, you might find that using those fees to buy back and burn tokens creates real scarcity and boosts value. Suddenly, the token is worth more. What happens then? It becomes far more attractive for people to stake it for utility, to become a service provider, or for governance, to help steer the protocol. This increased participation strengthens the network, making it more secure and better governed, which in turn attracts even more users. And just like that, the flywheel completes a turn and starts spinning even faster. This isn't speculation. It's the engine of sustainable growth. So we've spent all this time architecting the demand for your token, building that flywheel. But that's only half the equation. We have to be just as thoughtful about the supply side. What I see all the time is this obsession with a fixed supply cap, marketed as a magic bullet for value. But I find it can be incredibly short-sighted. What happens in a decade when emissions run out? How do you pay to secure your network? You might find that a small perpetual inflation rate isn't a bug, it's a feature, a permanent security budget. The same long-term thinking applies to your team and investors. Instead of simple time-based unlocks, what I really like to see are dynamic vesting schedules. This means tokens are released, not because a year has passed, but because the protocol hit a key milestone, like reaching 1 million users. It ensures everyone is rowing in the same direction, focused on creating real value, not just watching the clock. Okay, theory is great, but let's make this tangible. What I like to do is look at a project that's truly battle-tested, a project like MakerDAO. You might find that its MKR token is a masterclass in this flywheel design. First, you have clear governance. MKR holders vote on everything critical to the system. But it's the utility pillar that I find so brilliant. If the system faces a shortfall, new MKR is created to recapitalize it. It acts as the lender of last resort. This real-world risk gives governance genuine weight. And that brings us to the economic rights. Stability fees paid by users are used to buy back MKR on the open market and burn it, permanently removing it from supply. More platform usage leads directly to a scarcer token. It's a beautiful, resilient system where all three pillars, governance, utility, and value accrual, work in perfect harmony. Now for every elegant system like Maker, what I find is there are a dozen that look more like a sugar rush. I call this the empty calorie model. You've seen them. Protocols offering insane APYs, funded by printing their own token at a furious rate. The metrics look amazing at first. Users pour in, total value locked skyrockets. But what you might find is that you've just built a very elaborate vending machine that only dispenses more of its own stock. There's no real reason to hold the token. There's no sink, no utility or governance that takes tokens out of circulation. People are only there to farm the rewards and immediately sell them. It's a system that only rewards speculation, and it creates a frantic game of musical chairs. When the music of high inflation inevitably stops, everyone scrambles for the exit at once, and the entire structure collapses because there was never any real value there to begin with. So to make sure you're building a resilient engine and not an empty calorie model, what I like to do is run a quick audit. It's just a set of honest questions to ask yourself. You might find it helpful to start with this one. If all exchanges banned your token tomorrow and pure speculation vanished, who is your core buyer, and what specific problem are they solving by acquiring it? Really dig into that why. Really dig into that why. Another thing I look for is the scaling relationship. How does your token's value actually scale with the protocol's success? Is it a one-to-one linear relationship? Or did you design a flywheel where success creates exponential value accrual? And finally, what I do is try to identify the primary token sink. Is there a powerful, non-speculative reason for your token to be taken out of circulation? If you can't answer these questions clearly, you might find you're leaning more on hype than on sound economic design. So let's bring it all together. What I hope you're taking away today is that great tokenomics isn't really about spreadsheets and complex formulas. You might find it's much more about thoughtful system design. It's about architecture. When you focus on weaving together those three pillars, real utility, meaningful governance, and clear economic rights, what you find is you're not just creating a speculative asset. You're building an engine, a flywheel that naturally accrues value as your platform actually grows. But what I see happen all the time is founders build this beautiful, powerful engine, and then they have to decide who gets the keys, who gets to own a piece of it. That brings us to our next big question. So join us next time for episode 3, the cap table conundrum, structuring for a decade, not a demo day. We'll tackle those critical decisions around allocation for your team, investors, and your community.